Hey, what's going on, guys? Crimson Desert is lining up another update, and this one is shaping up to be a pretty meaningful quality of life pass instead of just the usual quick tune-up. Pearl Abyss says it is taking a little extra time to test and polish things before the patch goes out, which is why it is not dropping immediately, but the studio does expect it soon. The big headline here is that this update is supposed to be larger than the recent ones, mainly because it is bringing distant scenery improvements along with new difficulty settings, inventory category tabs, and a keyboard, mouse, plus controller preset. That means this is not just about fixing a few rough edges. It is clearly aimed at making the whole experience feel cleaner, easier to read, and more flexible depending on how someone prefers to play. And honestly, that makes a lot of sense when you look at what the last patch was already trying to do. The previous update added more stable control options, new storage at Howling Hill Camp for inventory items, better keyboard and mouse support, and a bunch of gameplay tweaks across quests, combat, UI, and settings. It also brought in things like more fast travel points, control improvements, updated food healing, and a long list of fixes that show Pearl Abyss is actively reacting to feedback rather than just pushing out content and moving on. So this next patch feels like the natural follow-up, because once a game starts smoothing out controls and storage, the next pain point is usually organization, readability, and how comfortable the game feels moment to moment. Now let's talk through the patch notes style rundown in a way that sounds like a real preview. The first thing everybody will probably notice is the new difficulty setting support. Pearl Abyss has not gone into full detail on the exact structure yet, so we're not pretending there is a complete breakdown in front of us. But the confirmed point is that the update is bringing difficulty options, which should give players more control over how punishing or relaxed the adventure feels. That is a big deal for a game like Crimson Desert because a lot of players want different things from the same world. Some people want a tougher fight, tighter timing, and more pressure in combat, while others mainly want to explore, follow the story, and enjoy the world without hitting a wall every few minutes. Difficulty settings are one of those changes that can quietly transform how welcoming a game feels without changing the core identity at all. Then there is the inventory category tab change, which might not sound dramatic at first, but in an open-world game, it can be huge. Inventory clutter is one of those things that starts off harmless and then slowly becomes annoying the longer you play. You pick up materials, quest items, gear, consumables, crafting bits, and whatever else the world throws at you, and before long, you are scrolling around trying to remember where anything is. The new tabs should make item management much smoother, faster, and less messy, especially for players who are deep into exploration or crafting. Combined with the storage improvements that were already added in the earlier patch, this sounds like Pearl Abyss is really trying to get ahead of the "my inventory is a disaster" problem before it turns into a bigger complaint. The Control Preset Edition is another smart move because it gives players a cleaner starting point right away. Instead of forcing everyone to spend a bunch of time reshuffling inputs, the game will give you a preset for keyboard and a mouse and another for controller use, which should make jumping in feel much more natural. That matters because Crimson Desert has already been working on control responsiveness in earlier updates, including menu improvements, better movement response, more reliable shortcuts, and cleaner input behavior. So this next patch is not coming out of nowhere. It is building on a wider effort to make the game easier to handle in actual play, whether you are fighting, exploring, or just moving through menus and inventory screens. And then there is the distant scenery improvement, which is the part that explains why Pearl Abyss says the file size will be larger than before. That is the kind of change you usually feel before you can easily describe it. The game world should look better at range, with cleaner detail and less of that visual weirdness that can happen when a world is huge, but the far-off view is not fully holding up. It is not the most flashy feature on the list, but it is one of the most important for making an open-world game feel expensive and polished. When the horizon looks better, everything feels better, because the whole world carries more weight. So even though this patch is being talked about for difficulty settings and inventory tabs, the technical side might end up being just as important for the overall experience. So yeah, this update looks like one of those patches that quietly improves a ton of everyday frustration at once. It is not just adding one headline feature and calling it a day. It is aiming at accessibility, organization, control comfort, and visual polish all in one go, which is exactly the kind of update that can change how people feel about a game after they have already spent a good amount of time with it. For anyone following Crimson Desert closely, this is the kind of patch that makes you think the studio is listening, adjusting, and trying to make the adventure smoother without losing the challenge and scale that make it stand out in the first place.